Famous paparazzi revealed that a certain influencer in the circle is secretly married. As soon as the news came out, everyone competed against top traffic influencer by Munin, instantly dominating the Weibo hot search list. All hot search terms, without exception, were related to Bai Munin. Most male celebrities in the entertainment industry were pulled out to stand guard, and even her agent once made it to the top 3 of the hot search list. The 5 big characters, Bai Mu Nan's hidden marriage, topped the list, directly igniting the entire internet. Hot topic on various forums. Who exactly did Bai Munin secretly marry? Answer. I don't know, I feel like even a dog in the entertainment industry can be related to her. The public opinion continues to ferment, and the parties involved have not come out to refute the rumors, which has been criticized and maliciously hyped by netizens. Until one day, fans accidentally met Bai Munin in the mall. She was wearing a floral dress, holding the arm of the man next to her and snuggling sweetly in his arms. She looked cute and charming, making people's hearts race. Can you tolerate my wife being robbed? When the fans were so angry that they ran over to see which wild man it was, the man next to Bai Munin suddenly took off his sunglasses and turned around. His smile was shallow and gentle like water. The fan was stunned for 3 seconds and was shocked. Lying down, Bai Munin's hidden marriage partner is the actor. Keywords of the novel. I accidentally made a fake movie with the movie Emperor without a pop-up window. I accidentally made a fake movie with the movie Emperor and downloaded the full text. I accidentally made a fake movie with the movie Emperor and read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Responsibility to me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Responsibility to me. Hurry up, send her over, remember to take photos and videos, I want to ruin her reputation. It's already arranged, we'll send it over now. In the clubhouse, 2 men helped the drunken and unconscious Bai Munin into the elevator and rushed up to the 5th floor, which is the VIP area that ordinary people cannot enter. They walked through the long corridor and arrived at the entrance of room 502. They first looked around and confirmed that there was no one around. Then, they gently pushed the room open, took Bai Munin in and threw him on the bed, and quickly left. Bai Munin, who was already heavily intoxicated, immediately fell asleep when she touched the bed. In a daze, she faintly heard the sound of the door closing. The next morning, Bai Munin woke up early. What's going on? She didn't drink with a few classmates and then Bai Munin rubbed her temples, trying to prop up her body, but to her surprise, she reached out and touched her tight and delicate chest. She suddenly turned pale with shock, swallowed her saliva, and slowly turned her head to take a look. Ah! How could there be a naked man lying next to him? Where are you? With her mind blank, she instinctively pulled open the blanket and glanced at her, then urgently covered herself and curled up at the head of the bed, watching the man beside her frown and gradually lift her eyes. In the depths of his eyes was a mist, as if he had not fully awakened. Bai Munin was both anxious and afraid, wanting to grope in bed when the man's cold voice suddenly came, "Don't move." Bai Munin was startled and quickly nailed himself to the spot, staring in terror at the man sitting up slowly propped up. You. Bai Munin opened her mouth, her mind blank. The other party first looked at her for a moment, their gaze fixed on her face, with a hint of playful laughter in their eyes. Being stared at by him like this, Bai Munin felt a bit panicked, feeling like a prey being closely watched by a wild beast, instinctively wanting to escape. Tell me, how much does it cost? The man seemed indifferent at all, calmly getting up and starting to put on clothes, as if it was an ordinary thing for him. How much do you need? It seems that he mistook her for someone who deliberately climbed onto his bed to threaten him with money. But as a newly rising artist, she only emerged. Once this kind of thing is spread, will she continue to work in the entertainment industry? She gritted her teeth and wrapped herself in a blanket to find her clothes, saying, "Let's just pretend nothing happened." Hello, everyone. Unexpectedly, she didn't use this as a threat. The man looked at her up and down, squinting his eyes slightly. Pick up a small bag from the bedside and flip out a phone in front of her. That's mine. Bai Munin quickly approached to take it away, but the man grabbed her hand and used her right thumb to unlock the fingerprint lock, flipping through it with great interest. Bai Munin. The contracted artist of Shanyu Company, no wonder. After reading it, the man threw his phone to her, with a cold chill in his eyes. Here are two options for you. First, I will spread this matter and make it impossible for you to survive in the entertainment industry. Second, take responsibility for me. What? Upon hearing this, Bai Munin looked incredulously at the almost perfect face in front of him. The two choices he gave were vastly different. For her, who is in the entertainment industry, once exposed, she would undoubtedly dig her own grave. But what about being responsible for him? The man approached and looked at her with deep eyes. If I were you, I would never choose the first one. Bai Munin tried to calm down as much as possible and asked in a low voice, what does it mean to be responsible? It's clearly you who treated me. You climbed onto my bed yourself, of course you are responsible. I'm not, at that time I. Looking back at that time, Bai Munin realized that she might have hit the nail on the head. Among the artists of the same period in the company, Fu Wenxian was her best friend. The two of them had agreed to make a name for themselves in the entertainment industry, but she brought them out for a drink and met a director, only to end up like this. You don't have to think about it, you know what's going on. She was tricked by someone. So you want to choose the first one? The man squinted and asked with a dangerous expression, seeing that she hadn't responded for a long time. Startled, Bai Munin quickly shook his head and said, of course not, but how do you want me to take responsibility? How much does it cost? The so-called responsibility is nothing more than money. Does this person see that she is a celebrity, so they think she has money and blackmail her? Seeing him dressed in a dog-like manner, I didn't expect his heart to be so dark that he would threaten her in the opposite direction. When it came to asking for money, a hint of strangeness flashed on the man's face and he said coldly, what I meant by being responsible was asking you to marry me. What? Getting married? Me, I'm still young and we're not familiar with each other. How could we get to the point of getting married? What kind of closed-mindedness, actually asking for marriage after just taking a nap? Speaking of which, I'm still at a disadvantage. Does he really crave his own body? Bai Munin stared at him vigilantly, instinctively taking a step back and distancing himself from him. When I say marriage, I mean obtaining a certificate. All I need to do is prove legally that I am married. We have nothing to do with anything else. You are your artist, and I do my job. The man spoke calmly. Obtaining a certificate is not just for fun, and it's just in case. There's no contingency, because you don't have a choice at all. At first, the man was still reasoning with her, but seeing that she was still hesitant, he suddenly forced Bai Munin to widen his eyes and say, you. Tomorrow we will meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. If you don't come, I have a way to expose you. Abandoning this sentence, the man first opened his phone, took out a few photos to enlarge, and then turned the screen towards her. When Bai Munin saw the photos, she was immediately dumbfounded. Isn't this the photo they were in when they were so emotional? Good guy, he did it on purpose. In that situation, I can still think of taking photos, and it is indeed a deep scheming. Seeing Bai Munin's face turn pale, the man said coldly, I still have a video. Do you want to watch it? You're a pervert. Bai Munin jumped up and wanted to report to the police, but in doing so, her career was ruined. You can bet on whether these photos and videos will spread throughout the internet within a day. Bai Munin dared not answer these words, and she swallowed her saliva. Not to mention that the other person was not from the entertainment industry, even from the perspective of those photos, she was basically the only one with a face. At most, the other person could only show her body. If we insist on killing the fish and breaking the net, it will only cause huge losses to her in the end. No matter whether it's the other party setting a trap for her or not, at this point, she has no choice, but getting married is not a joke. He has his own tricks in his hands. If one day he is unhappy and leaks videos and photos, won't she be finished? But how can you guarantee that I agree to obtain the certificate from you, so you won't send out these videos and photos? She opened her mouth, her eyes filled with worry. I seem to have guessed that she would ask, and the man answered decisively, I can sign a contract with you to maintain a peaceful marital relationship for 2 years. After 2 years, I will immediately delete all the videos and photos. Of course, these 2 years are not completely beneficial for you, and I will try my best to ensure your resources. Capital, resources. If it were ordinary resources, I wouldn't sell myself so much. Surprisingly, he dared to bargain with him. The man's lips slightly curved and he sneered, do you have any options? Why don't I send out the photos now? Wait a moment. I'll consider it again. Seeing him about to flip through his phone, Baimunin quickly stopped him. It's difficult for her to make a decision about her career and future, mainly because she can't trust this man. I don't have time to waste here. The man began to urge her to make a decision, and Baimunin became anxious. He quickly said, you and Fu Wenqian teamed up to cheat me. Who knows what you're worried about? Even if I have a bad heart, you have no right to negotiate terms with me. Besides, I don't know the person you mentioned, and secondly, you took the initiative to climb onto my bed. You should have paid the price for your behavior. Baimunin had no way to refute, mainly because the blame was in someone else's hands, and saying more would be in vain. Seeing her speechless for a while, the man walked leisurely towards the bathroom. Baimunin was stunned and quickly picked up her phone, saying, wait a moment, let me add you to WeChat first. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Obtaining certificates from strangers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Obtaining certificates from strangers. Just after adding WeChat, Baimunin was kicked out of the room. Fortunately, she got dressed in chaos. Otherwise, what would be the point of standing so meticulously at the door of the room? She looked around and made sure there was no one around. She quickly took out her hat from her bag, put on a mask and sunglasses, and found a corner to take out her phone. The missed call of 99+ in an instant scared her pale face. It was all from her agent Yu Xiao. As her phone was in silent mode, she didn't hear it at all, so she quickly called back. Where have you been? Do you know if you have any important work to talk about today? I have already made an appointment with that side. On the phone, Yu Xiao's scolding came through. Baimunin was the most afraid of him and didn't dare to provoke him on weekdays, but this time she had no choice. She was exhausted and panicked, and even faced such a troublesome situation, so she had no intention of talking about any work. Xiao, I have something to attend to, so I won't go today. Do you know how important this opportunity is to you? I know, but I'm really a bit tired. I'll explain to you later and hang up for now. Wait a moment, doodle doodle. She hung up the phone very quickly, just afraid that Yu Xiao would come over. If he finds out about his own situation, he's afraid that the sky will collapse. A good rookie can't just be ruined like this. Baimunin dared not return to the rental house and silently found a hotel to stay. Recalling what had happened, he collapsed on the bed. How should I choose this? On one hand, her reputation was ruined, and on the other hand, she married a stranger who didn't even know their name. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel angry. She opened WeChat and found a newly added friend. First, she looked at the other person's information, which was completely blank, and her social circle was so desolate that she thought it was an empty account. Shouldn't you be deceived? She quickly sat up and hesitated for a while as she watched the other person take a white portrait. She decided to send an emoji over and asked, "Are you there?" I don't know how long it took for the other party to reply to the message. They threw her a file and she was surprised to find that it was actually a contract. After roughly scanning his eyes, Bai Munin froze. The content of this contract requires her to obtain certification from the other party, but without interfering with each other, as long as there is a legal relationship. In front of the public, she still has a single image, and the contract period is 2 years. During this period, neither party can damage the other party's image and interests. The contract seems to be in her favor, at least indicating that the other party won't spread the news about that night, but can this really be signed? What if it's a prank on her? Just as Bai Munin was struggling, the other party sent another message. No problem. After reading it, sign the contract first and then obtain the certificate tomorrow. If you don't come, I promise you will regret it. Surprisingly, he threatened her again. But unfortunately, due to her profession, she can really be threatened. Bai Munin had no place to vent his anger, so he could only tightly grip his phone, tap the screen, and type a string of words. Why must I obtain a certificate? There are many ways to solve the problem, but he chose the option of obtaining certification. Is it because his fanatic fans deliberately made such a move? That's it, I've been targeted by a pervert. But upon closer examination, it doesn't seem like it. The contract doesn't have any negative impact on her, and is it necessary for fanatics to only marry her for 2 years? Is it possible that this product was pursued by some terrifying woman who had to resort to obtaining a certificate? Or could it be said that he was forced to marry by his family and happened to hit the muzzle of a gun? If it were really these two situations, the issue of obtaining a certificate for hidden marriage with him would not be a big deal. As long as it didn't ruin her career, she would admit it even if she suffered losses. However, the other party did not answer her question until 3 minutes later when a message was sent. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, see you all. Angry, Bai Munin could no longer care about so much. He frantically used a bunch of dirty words and sent them over, along with a barrage of emojis. However, the other party completely ignored him, and the input on the dialog box never popped up again. The feeling of punching cotton with one fist was really speechless, so she had to drop her phone and sit on the bed in silence for a while. The next morning, Bai Munin quietly sneaked home, picked up her household registration book, took a taxi, and rushed to the Civil Affairs Bureau. For the sake of her future and career, she went all out this time. Hidden marriage is better exposed than those things, at least if something really happens, it can be said to be a romantic relationship between husband and wife. At the Civil Affairs Bureau, as soon as Bai Munin got off the car, she saw a black Porsche parked on the roadside. She couldn't help but take another look, but the car window suddenly rolled down, revealing her perfect profile. He waved at her and coldly said, "Get in the car." Bai Munin walked over curiously and asked, "What are you doing?" "Sign the contract." The other party said lightly, and then she remembered the contract sent over yesterday. It seemed like there was no problem, so she opened the car door and sat down. The other party handed her the printed 2 copies of the contract. Upon closer inspection, they have already signed their name and pressed their fingerprints. Phong Chi. I always feel that this name is a bit familiar. You have read all the content, sign it. Phong Chi seemed impatient and urged her with a cold face. Bai Munin quickly said, "Wait a moment, I need to confirm again. What if there are any traps inside? She needs to see clearly." After carefully reading it 3 or 4 times, Bai Munin didn't see any problem, and it was no different from what she posted yesterday. So she signed her name and pressed her fingerprint. This person was well prepared, she didn't even need to ask, she provided everything to her over and over again. After signing, the 2 of them walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. The process of registering for marriage is very simple. After a set of procedures, the marriage certificate is handed over to each of them. Looking at the red notebook in her hand, Bai Munin felt like she was dreaming. "Are you just marrying a stranger like this? Do you need me to take you back?" After walking down the stairs, Phong Chi politely asked. Bai Munin looked up in confusion, then lowered his eyes and whispered, "No need, let me be quiet. After all, for a certificate application, here you are with a password of 6 zeros. Ah." Bai Munin took the bank card handed by Feng Qi in surprise, and before he could figure out the situation, he had already taken big steps down the stairs and got into the car. "You walked really fast." She secretly slandered and carefully put away her bank card and marriage certificate. Then she took out her phone and saw that it was indeed a missed call from 99+. She didn't dare to ignore her this time and immediately dialed back. From across the street came Yu Shaoji's deep voice, "I don't care what you're doing, come to the company immediately to see me." After speaking, I hung up the phone. In the car, the person sitting in the back seat suddenly leaned out and sighed helplessly, "Is this really okay? Once something goes wrong, it can have a huge impact on you." Just now, Bai Munin's mind was dizzy and he was sitting in the passenger seat, but he didn't realize that someone was sitting behind him. "Is it big?" "I don't think it has any impact." If it's big, it's not a disadvantage for her to directly disclose it. If you don't suffer a loss, but actually make a profit, you may be hated by your group of fanatical pursuers and find it difficult to move forward in the future. Shanyu Company really can't protect her. It's your turn to act, my gold medal agent. The person behind couldn't help but roll their eyes and said, "At this point, you should think of me. Stealing dragons and turning phoenixes doesn't always succeed." Feng Qi suddenly smiled lightly and said, "One time is enough. I don't think you're just looking for someone to get a certificate just to avoid those wealthy women. After all, those outside the circle are better than those inside the circle. You probably cheated me too, right? Actually, from the beginning, you targeted them." He suddenly widened his eyes, filled with doubts. However, Feng Qi did not pay attention to him and just unconsciously raised the corner of his lips. Who knows? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Accidentally Sleeping with the Best Actor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Accidentally Sleeping with the Best Actor. Didn't you say you had already sent her to Zhou Huaiming's bed? But what about her? She was ready to take videos and photos, but there was no one in Zhou Huaiming's bed at all. In the lounge, Fu Wenqian was angrily calling the person in charge. "I could have received those indecent photos of Bai Munin yesterday, but no one has sent them to me today. When I asked, I found out that they haven't even been delivered. This is strange. The person she specially arranged finally got Bai Munin drunk. Can she even send someone to the wrong place? Don't get angry yet. I've checked and it's true that the wrong room was delivered. The two room numbers are too similar, and the hallway lights are a bit dim at night, so I didn't expect it. And who left the door of that room unlocked? Normally, I'm not going the wrong way. I don't want to talk nonsense to you. Since the person hasn't been delivered, don't want the money either. If you don't give me money, I'll just shake off this matter and see which one of us is doomed. You." Fu Wenqian hung up the phone in anger, but honestly called someone and stomped her feet in anger at the thought of her plan falling through. "What's wrong? Who made you angry?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind, leaving Fu Wenqian completely stunned. She tried to control her emotions and turned around with a smile. She saw Bai Munin standing at the door, looking up and down at her. In front of her, she was as if nothing had happened. It seemed that sending her to the wrong room that night did not cause any harm to her. "It's nothing, a small problem at work. How did you come to the company?" Fu Wenqian pretended to be calm, but in fact, she was very worried, afraid that Bai Munin would see the problem. Bai Munin gave a faint smile, as if he had no intention of asking her about the night before yesterday. "Xiao Gu is looking for me, and I dare not come. You should be busy first, I need to go see him." As she spoke, she turned around and walked away. Fu Wenqian looked at her distant figure and breathed a sigh of relief, secretly sneering to herself. She was indeed a fool, and she still wanted to take office. Idiotic delusions. Ah Chiu. Just a few steps away, Bai Munin suddenly sneezed. She rubbed her nose, thinking about catching a cold. Of course, it could also be purely due to seeing Fu Wenxian feeling uneasy. When she thought about what happened that day, she wished she could go up and slap Fu Wenxian a few times, but for the sake of her own career, she still endured it. The more angry she is, the more she will be noticed by Fu Wenxian. This is not a fuel-efficient lamp. If she finds out something, it will not be a good thing for Bai Mu Nan. So she can only endure it for now and slowly retaliate back. What are you thinking? I called you for a while but didn't respond. Yu Xiao walked over and shook his hand in front of him. Bai Munin finally came to her senses. No, nothing. Follow me, I'll tell you about the upcoming announcement. After following Yu Xiao to the office, he handed her a contract. Bai Munin asked in surprise, what is this? I've told you before that there was an important job to talk about yesterday, and I asked you to come to the company earlier. However, you ended up playing for me in disappearing. The collaboration we finally managed to secure has now gone to Fu Wenxian's hands. Is it a new drama from Dongchen Film? But I did have something to do yesterday, otherwise I would have come. Xiao, do you think there's any way to talk about it again? For a young artist like her, having a good female lead is already very fortunate. It was for this role that Fu Wenxian tricked her out of drinking, causing her to almost ruin her reputation. When Yu Xiao mentioned this, he became angry and said with a straight face, breaking the promise is a very serious matter. Why is the big boss waiting for you? Originally, many people were eager for that role. If it weren't for Mr. Zhao's intervention, how could it have fallen into the hands of a newcomer like you? Now that everything is good, Mr. Zhao has tilted all the resources to Fu Wenxian. I see how you plan to end it. Shangyu is only a middle-level company with limited resources. Originally, Mr. Zhao had a positive outlook on Bai Munin and wanted to promote her, but this time she missed the opportunity herself. Of course, Mr. Zhao also harbored resentment. Bai Munin lowered her eyes, too weak to speak, after all, it was her fault. Upon seeing her sad, Yu Xiao felt a little distressed and said, this time I have won you a new resource. The small supporting role in the big movie and by Yue Guang, who plays the male lead, are very important and will become a highlight, although they have few roles. No lines, no body language, only a back and profile. Xiao, are you sure you've won me this role? After reading the contract, Bai Munin was shocked. What kind of little supporting role is this? Even if it's a blockbuster movie, what's the use of her one-on-one approach? Whose attention would be on her? Do you think what I'm talking about is how good this character is? This is a big movie that director Gu personally starred in. The male protagonist is also the youngest actor, Feng Qi. Whether it's popularity or status, they expect you to be unmatched. Joining such a crew can help you expand your network, and it will only be good for the future. Feng Qi. Which Feng Qi? She didn't pay much attention to the elder's words, but instead focused all her attention on the name Feng Qi. Who would let her nominal husband also call this name? You don't even know that the box office champion, the three golden actors. Do you have a photo of him? Bai Munin was a bit anxious. She wondered if she had slept with the actor. Where could there be such a coincidence? But this name doesn't exist on a bad street, it really makes her curious. It's also her fault for not paying attention to the news in the entertainment industry, coupled with being a newcomer in the draft, her mind is full of how to perform well in the next performance, and she doesn't even know the top performers in the entertainment industry. I didn't expect her to be so interested in Feng Qi, so Yu Xiao had to pull out a photo from his phone and show it to her. As soon as Bai Munin saw the perfect face on the screen, his face turned pale and he froze in place. It's him, it's really him. How could it be? What? Do you know him? Yu Xiao asked curiously. No, I don't know. Bai Munin quickly shook his head with a guilty conscience, his mind already in a mess. She didn't know if she should be shocked or scared. Oh my goodness, she accidentally slept with the actor and even got a certificate from him. I'm afraid even the entire entertainment industry doesn't believe it when it comes to this. Seeing her face turn green and white, sometimes even slightly biting her lips, Yu Xiao asked with a puzzled expression, "What's wrong with you?" "I'll tell you, don't think of this person. There are quite a few people who are watching him, and a few of them are the daughters of the big shots. Be careful, you don't even know how to die." Ah! Bai Munin suddenly looked up, his face turning even whiter. So isn't she determined to die? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Watching people download CDs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Watching people download CDs. Despite being unable to calm down for a long time, Bai Munin still signed the contract. However, she dared not refuse the resources provided by Yu Xiao. If she hasn't taken on a new job for a long time, even the company may have objections to her. Just how is she going on this crew? What should I do if I encounter Feng Qi myself? Two people pretending not to know each other. After all, it was agreed not to interfere with each other. After thinking for a day, Bai Munin couldn't come up with a solution. She decided to take advantage of her leisure time to carefully review the script. Although she had few scenes and no lines, she was also given a script. It is said that the director of the character she played values it very much, and has screened it extensively in the industry. She even went to school to find new people, but was not satisfied. After learning about this, Yu Xiao sent a video of Bai Munin's performance to director Gu. The back and profile of Bai Munin in the video perfectly matched the director's expectations. After watching it, he immediately made a decision to secure Bai Munin. The script is very simple. Bai Munin looked at it and picked up her phone to check Feng Qi's information. She thought she didn't know this person because he was acting low-key, but when she saw it, there were news about him everywhere on the internet, more high-profile than any other celebrity. How could she have never known such a person before? Of course, if she knew, she wouldn't dare to easily obtain a certificate from him. How could he even sing? Upon reading a song by a fan who had Feng Qi, Bai Munin instinctively clicked on it. His voice was very gentle, like a clear stream in summer, washing his soul. Can you still dance? You can also play the piano, it's so versatile. Feng Qi's profile made her blush and heartbeat. When she thought about the two of them that night, she inexplicably felt like she had made a profit. No, it's clearly my own fault. Bai Munin shook his head suddenly and looked up to see another colleague from the company, Li Fanfan, standing in front of him. Look at your silly way, you're actually listening to Feng Qi's song. I'll tell you, they have a single character who stands firm, rich women and girlfriends who have a lot of fans, and socialites who keep pursuing them. Don't even think about it. She propped her hands on the table and kept looking at Bai Munan's computer screen. Bai Munan was afraid of being seen by her and quickly covered the computer, saying, "I'm just curious. After all, I'm a senior and we have cooperation, so we need to get to know each other first. Is it just your back? I can't even say what I know. I wonder. Xiao Gu has always been good to you, and resources have also been tilted towards you. Why is it that this time you are using such a resource? It's not a waste of time." Li Fanfan said as he propped up his hands and sat on the table. Yu Xiao's considerations have long been told to Bai Munin that the most feared thing in this circle is to use any means to compete for resources. Although Li Fanfan has a good relationship with her, with Fu Wenxian as a warning, she will not be foolish enough to know everyone without hesitation. I don't know, maybe Xiao Gu has his own considerations. Besides, can he provide the resources? That's right, Xiao Ji's temper is well known. By the way, I heard that all the resources you obtained were given to Fu Wenxian. It's really a pity. Li Fanfan came to stir up trouble, watching them compete with the clan for profit, so Bai Munin smiled and responded a few words, and then drove her away on the grounds of wanting to read the script. Half a month later, Bai Munin finished his current work and officially joined the production team of Iching Shanhe. As a newcomer, she is only allowed to bring one assistant around and cannot even have a nanny car. After work, she can only return to a nearby hotel. Newcomers already have no human rights, and with such a large crew, Bai Munin certainly cannot be too high profile. If he offends the director and producers, it is common to change people at the last minute. Early in the morning, Bai Munin and his assistant Tao Tao arrived at the production team. It was truly a big crew with a large number of people, and group performances were everywhere. Occasionally, they could even see a few familiar old actors. She kept looking around, but unfortunately couldn't see anyone in the end. However, I think it is true that he is the leading actor, and he will not stay in the crew all the time. Unlike their small supporting role, they don't have much scenes, but they have to be on call 24 hours a day. After joining the group, Bai Munin went to see the director first. Before he could say a word, the director hurriedly left. Another actress beside her looked at Bai Munin coldly and sarcastically, saying, "Director Gu is well known in the industry for his selflessness. He only looks at his personal abilities and thinks that having a certain level of beauty can make the director look at him differently." It was just normal communication, I didn't expect it to be said like this. Tao Tao felt a bit frustrated and wanted to refute, but was stopped by Bai Munin. Then, he smiled at the actress and silently pulled Tao Tao away. "Look, this circle never lacks self-righteous people. They don't even know what they can do without hitting a nail," the actress sneered. After leaving, Tao Tao was very angry and gritted her teeth, saying, "She's too extreme. How could she say that? At least she's also a colleague of the production team. What's your first day in the entertainment industry? What kind of good looks do you expect your seniors to give to the newcomers?" Bai Munin smiled faintly. In the days after joining the group, Bai Munin never filmed. Her scenes were very concentrated, which can be considered the climax of the movie. She hasn't filmed them yet. In her leisure time, she either reads the script or follows Group C to learn from the scenes. Because Feng Qi is the male protagonist and is mostly filmed in Group A, she never meets anyone. After so many years, she hasn't even seen any personal films. At first, she was curious, but later she gave up. One Leap Mountains and Rivers is a costume movie. On a hot day, everyone was wearing heavy clothing in temperatures of over 30 degrees Celsius. After filming, it felt like they were swimming in the water, soaking wet all over. Bai Munin was lucky and had no role to play. She could wear her own clothes, but as a result, Yin Shuang, the fourth female actress in Group C, ordered her to buy ice water to drink. "I said I wanted fruit-soaked ice cream, but you actually bought me lime water on purpose." After finally buying lime water under the scorching sun, Bai Munin looked at Yin Shuang with a shocked expression on his face. "You said you wanted lime water yourself, and even said you drank it to quench your thirst." "Let me buy a few more cups back," he said. "I can't even hear you clearly. Are you trying to anger the director when filming?" Yin Shuang refused to admit it, as it was her fault for saying one sentence. Not to mention the heat, Bai Munin still resorted to this trick. Feeling frustrated, he forcefully placed the purchased lime water on the small table next to Yin Shuang, splashing water all over his body. "I bought water for you because you are a senior. Everyone is very hot, and some have even suffered from heatstroke. I don't have a role in the show, so I am willing to go, but this is not an unreasonable reason for you to make trouble." Yin Shuang stood up from the chair in anger and said, "I gave you face, didn't I? Even if I asked you to help buy water, you could have bought it the wrong way. It's my fault when I came back. The newcomers now dare not offend me. Let's take a look and don't cause any trouble for ourselves in the future. We can't afford to cause trouble." In a twinkling of an eye, a group of people gathered around. After all, Yin Shuang had played a lot of plays, as well as supporting role in movies, and had a certain position in the circle. She stood by her in both group performances and field affairs, and began to point at Bai Munin. Bai Munin looked indifferent and pointed to the lime water, asking, "Do you mean you don't want this water?" Yin Shuang coldly replied, "No. Okay, it's hot today, I'll treat everyone to water." She picked up the lime water and prepared to distribute it to the others, but those people looked at each other, occasionally glancing at Yin Shuang, and everyone dared to take action. Well, it's all about watching people play games, and Bai Munin didn't bother to say much. As he was about to leave with water, someone behind him shouted, I want it." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Newcomers are hard to get along with. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Newcomers are hard to get along with. Bai Munin turned around and saw a tall, thin, and white young man running towards him. Perhaps due to running too quickly, he stopped and gasped for breath. At first glance, this person seemed quite impressive, while the others remained silent with a strange expression on their faces. "Here." Bai Munin handed over a glass of water in surprise, and the young man took it and inserted the straw. He took several strong sips and almost choked. In no time, he finished the entire glass before coming back to life and said to Bai Munin, "Thank you very much. You really saved my life. Is it that exaggerated? Of course, you don't know how fierce Director Zheng is. I didn't even dare to ask my assistant to buy me water during the filming. Fortunately, I heard you saying that you bought the wrong water. If you bought the wrong one, you would buy the wrong one. Don't waste it. I'll take all of this. How much money will I transfer to you?" As he spoke, he took out his phone and Bai Munin quickly shook his head. "You don't need to transfer money to me. These are just for me to treat you. Anyway, if someone doesn't appreciate it, if you're willing to drink, that's enough." "I'm not willing to invite someone to drink water," he said with a smile as he took out the lime water handed over by Bai Munin and took out his phone. "Then let's add a WeChat account and pretend to know each other." Bai Munin didn't think too much, so she agreed. After scanning, she saw the other person's name, Fong Gu. Suddenly, she was taken aback. Although she may not have heard of Feng Qi's name before, Fong Gu still had a slight ear for it. Isn't he the very talented idol singer? The sales of any single are terrifying, and many tours have been held, with popularity reaching its peak. This time, playing the male lead in One Leap Mountain and River, the company can be said to be highly praised. No wonder when they saw him, the others immediately changed their faces. "My cousin is still waiting for me. I'll leave first, thank you for the water." Fong Gu smiled and thanked me, and Bai Mu Nan became very curious. "Cousin?" "Yes, my cousin, Feng Qi." So it was him. I don't know why, but when she heard this name, Bai Munin felt strange in her heart. After watching Fong Gu leave, Yin Shuang began to mock and mock again, saying that she knew how to hold on to her thighs. Seeing a famous person, her eyes became straight, and Bai Munin was too lazy to bother, so she let them talk. After staying for several days, it was finally Bai Munin's turn to play. Early in the morning, before dawn, she was called up to put on makeup. The makeup of ancient costumes is very troublesome. It took several hours just to put on makeup, and Bai Munin, sitting in front of the mirror, kept dozing off. Several times, she almost fell asleep until she finished putting on makeup and changed into costumes. The makeup artist suddenly felt a bright spot in front of her. Bai Munin's face was already very delicate and gorgeous. Wearing ancient costumes, it was even more beautiful to the extreme, making them unable to resist taking out their phones and taking a few photos. As soon as they left the dressing room, the other actresses on the set became jealous and crazy when they saw Bai Munin's makeup. With such a face, it was only a matter of time before she blushed, but the circle was just so big. Isn't it that when she got up, she was just competing with them for resources? Pay attention to her trends, especially the online reviews, and dig up her black materials. The price is not a problem. They all instructed their assistants to strangle her as much as possible in the cradle. These Bai Munin naturally didn't know, so she arrived at the filming site early. As it was a big scene, the scenes were all set up, and all the staff were ready, waiting for Feng Qi to come and then proceed with the filming. However, before that, Feng Qi needs to complete the filming of Group B, with Yin Shuang as the acting actor. Yin Shuang was well aware that Feng Qi was going to shoot a big scene with Bai Munin next. She was furious and felt a sense of crisis when she saw Bai Munin putting on makeup again. She deliberately dragged on, but insisted on using the end machine several times. So that's what you're looking for. Ah, I'm sorry director, I forgot my words. Yin Shuang turned back awkwardly and stuck out her tongue at Director Zheng sitting in front of the monitor. It's been 5 times now, what's going on with you today? With so many people waiting for you, you always make mistakes. If it doesn't pass, you'll have to change people. Director Zheng was already hot-tempered, and if she delayed her time, she would get angry directly. Yin Shuang was so scared that she shrunk her neck and said weakly, I'll think about it again. Teacher Feng, I'm sorry. I don't mind, but with so many staff waiting for you, you have to consider them in the scorching summer. Feng Qi smiled faintly, wearing a jade crown on his head and a luxurious robe. He was truly handsome and extraordinary. Take a 10-minute break, touch up, and adjust as soon as possible. Jing Dao shouted angrily with a loud horn, then continued to look at the monitor. After Yin Shuang succeeded, she was overjoyed and quickly approached Feng Qi, but was blocked by Feng Qi's bodyguard. Makeup, please don't block the light. Okay. After the hope fell through, Yin Shuang sat alone on the side, seemingly distancing herself from the lines and plot, but in reality, she kept stealing glances at the direction of Group A. In such a hot day, even the best makeup would be beautiful. The people in Group A had been waiting for several hours, while Bai Munin sat under the umbrella, panting heavily. Tao Tao kept fanning her, but it was of no use. Her outfit was winter attire, wrapped in a big cloak, and she was almost ripe. Isn't it ready yet? When will it be? I'll take off my cloak first. She couldn't help but take off her cloak and sit on the small stool, looking around eagerly, hoping to end the scene quickly. I'm going crazy with the heat. It's fast, it should be fast. Group B doesn't have much shooting content, they should be able to come soon. But they still need to put on makeup again. Bai Munin wanted to cry without tears. Who made her a newcomer? Even if she waited, she had to put on her makeup and wait here. The makeup artist has come to apply her makeup several times, and she has been waiting from morning until noon when the sun is at its hottest. The high temperature of around 30 degrees Celsius, combined with heavy costumes, has made her almost faint from the heat. At this moment, I don't know who suddenly shouted, "Here we are, Teacher Feng and the others are here. Everyone is back at their posts, and we will start filming immediately." She looked not far away and saw Feng Qi walking towards him surrounded by a large group of people, but he was so eager that she almost didn't even have the chance to see him. Feng Qi changed into a more youthful outfit, with a high ponytail and a jade crown, which was eye-catching. The surrounding photographers began filming one after another, and even many staff members took out their phones. "What are you doing?" Bai Munin asked angrily as she saw Tao Tao put down her fan and took out her phone to take a photo next to her. "Join in the fun, that's the 3 golden actors. I finally saw someone alive." "Oh, the actor." Bai Munin repeated Tao Tao's words, with a hint of displeasure in her tone. "What movie queen? She's almost so hot." End of this chapter. This is not mentioned in Chapter 6 of the script. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is not mentioned in Chapter 6 of the script. Feng Qi, who walked by, completely regarded Bai Munin as a stranger and didn't even give a glance. He went over to discuss the plot with the director. Bai Munin doubted whether this person had forgotten to obtain evidence from him. After a while, filming began. With the director's command, everyone was in place. There were no lines in this scene, only a close dot-up of Feng Qi's facial expression and gaze. As for Bai Munin, she just needed to stand in front of Feng Qi, half sideways, revealing her side face, and let the wind and snow blow her hair. Due to the need for snow scenery, there was no snow on hot days, so we filmed inside the shed and did special effects in the post-production. The temperature outside was around 30 degrees Celsius, while inside the shed it almost reached over 40 degrees Celsius. After a while, Bai Munin felt that the clothes inside were soaked through. "Alright, you come on stage." After finishing writing about Feng Qi, it was Bai Munin's turn to appear. She was filming for the first time and couldn't even find a spot, so it was the assistant director who reminded her several times before she finally arrived. "Are you nervous?" Just as she found her seat, Feng Qi's inexplicable words stunned her. This person's voice was cold, just like their attitude toward strangers. But when it comes to calculation, although they have obtained the certificate, they are only strangers who have obtained the certificate. Bai Munin tensed her body, afraid that she might not be in place, and at the same time, she was sweating all over due to the heat. Her tone was a bit weak, and she retorted softly, "It's okay." "Let's start then," Feng Qi said as he took a step forward and hugged her waist, causing her to stiffen instantly. Memories of that night swept through her in an instant. "Don't be so intimate, right?" She instinctively pushed him, but to her surprise, Feng Qi replied with an indifferent expression, "You didn't read the script." "Ah." Bai Munin suddenly realized and quickly said, "I've seen it, it's just." Feng Qi immediately released her with a cold tone, "It seems you're not ready, director. I think it's better not to shoot today. Since it's a big scene, there shouldn't be any problems, and my partner is not in the right state." I'm not, just because. Since Feng Qidu has said so, let's stop here today. Everyone is also tired. The filming in the studio is very hard and hot, so let's start early tomorrow morning. I didn't expect Director Gu to be particularly talkative when facing Feng Qi, and he actually agreed. Bai Munin was stunned. Is this blaming her? Good guy, as for being so sneaky with her right now. We've all started filming and said she's not in the right state. Isn't this planning to blame her for everything? This is not possible. Once she is considered to have poor business skills, she will never be able to stand out for the rest of her life. I was a bit nervous, so I wasn't in a state just now, but now it's better, let's continue. Bai Munin pleaded and looked at Feng Qi, feeling inexplicably distant and indifferent compared to him that day, making her dare not look him in the eye. Perhaps this is the pressure from the actor, who scared her without doing anything. Feng Qirao looked at her with interest and squinted, asking, "Are you sure?" "Okay. No matter how hot it is, she will go out of her way and not let anyone talk." She openly refuted Feng Qi, really treating herself as a dish. Didn't she see that even the director followed him? Newcomers are young and energetic, and they don't know the rules in this circle yet. Just hit the nail on the head more. That's right, I don't think Feng Qi's face is good. With her suffering, maybe the character she finally managed to win will also be gone. The other actors were whispering there, looking like they were watching a good show, hoping that Bai Munin would be exhausted because of it. Unexpectedly, Feng Qi suddenly raised the corner of his mouth and reached out his hand naturally to grab Bai Munin's waist. He turned to Director Gu and said, "Then let's continue filming." Director Gu was a bit surprised, but still nodded and said, "Okay, keep going." Surprisingly compromised. The people around him were surprised and said that Feng Qi was not easy to get along with. This may be his first compromise. Yes, that's the angle. Don't move, profile your face, where is the blower? Keep blowing. The director shouted loudly with a loudspeaker, feeling that Bai Munin's body was not his own. After playing with it for a long time, he finally got it right. She breathed a sigh of relief and began to recall the content of the script. Performance without any lines was very difficult, especially for newcomers like her. The reason why the director dares to hire her as a newcomer is because she is led by Feng Qi. As soon as she enters the role, Feng Qi's infectious power is very strong, not to mention her back and profile. As long as the camera does not do big close-ups, it mainly focuses on Feng Qi's face, and there are basically no major problems. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Bai Munin felt nervous and found it difficult to get into a state. It was terrifying to see that she could only hold on, as she was just a figure behind her back. She just followed Feng Qi. Do you know how to perform this segment? Suddenly, Feng Qi took the opportunity to find an angle and whispered in her ear. Is he ready to guide himself? Bai Munin was overjoyed when she was about to shake her head. Her waist was suddenly pinched, causing her body to tremble. Her tense nerves suddenly relaxed, and the corners of her eyes were filled with a hint of surprise. Her long hair gently brushed against the corners of her lips. At this moment, Feng Qi exerted a force on his hand and pushed her towards him. Then, a kiss was imprinted on her lips. Is it written like this in the script? Where did the kissing scene come from? Knowing that he might have been tricked, Bai Munin tried to push him away, but to his surprise, Director Gu's loud voice came out of the air. Yes, that's it, that's the feeling. Continue to release your emotions, and the camera is in place. Feng Qi's kiss was too deep, almost suffocating Bai Munin. A blush slowly stained the end of her eyes, and a tear slipped from the corner of her eye. It was instantly captured by the camera. Director Gu slapped his thigh and exclaimed in surprise, "Not bad, the mood is in place. Where did the emotions come from? She is really suffocating. What, is acting deadly?" Bai Munin shouted wildly in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Falling into a well and falling into a stone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Falling into a well and falling into a stone. At this moment, Bai Munin's brain was blank, with rapid breathing. The weather was hot, and she was still wearing thick clothes. Her back was already soaked in sweat, and her heart was pounding uncontrollably. I don't know how long it took, but as she was about to faint, she suddenly heard someone shouting, "I'm wearing makeup. Hurry up, go get your makeup done. You're in good condition now, you can't stop it." The director immediately shouted at the top of his throat, and upon hearing this, Feng Qi reluctantly let go of Bai Munin. He curled his lips and chuckled lightly, then followed his assistant to the side to rest and make up. It wasn't until the makeup artist came to repair Bai Munin's makeup that she regained her senses. Her whole body was like a dream, indescribable. Don't move, I've spent most of my eye makeup, it will take a little longer. You can stick with it. After the makeup artist finished speaking to her, she picked up the tools and began to apply makeup. Bai Munin felt a bit helpless because she was a newcomer, and even for makeup, she didn't get a chair or anything like that. She just stood in the sun. Her makeup is already complicated, coupled with waiting for so long in the hot weather, it's not surprising. Teacher, are you almost ready? Bai Munin couldn't hold on any longer. She was tired and hot, and the key was that she couldn't offend the makeup artist. She could only ask with a friendly expression. Almost, I know you're tired, and I'm the same. It's not easy for anyone to stand under the big sun. Isn't there a sunshade here? Yes, I'm just asking. After everyone said that, Bai Munin had to shut up. Anyway, the members of the production team were all watching people and watching videos. As a newcomer, it's normal for her to be looked down upon by others. I don't know how long it took, but Bai Munin was already drowsy. The makeup artist had just finished putting on her makeup, and as soon as it was done, the director shouted to start. The shooting went very smoothly this time, and I don't know if it was because I knew Feng Qi's tricks, but it made Bai Munin less nervous. The whole scene went smoothly, and the director was very satisfied. Okay, finish work. The director put down the loudspeaker, and everyone else breathed a sigh of relief, doing their own thing. The assistant quickly came up to deliver water to Feng Qi and took him away with a sunshade umbrella. Cao Cao waited for a long time before she had the chance to sneak into Bai Munen's side. This time, she didn't have time to prepare for the water, so she could only throw an umbrella over her head and ask softly, "Are you tired? Let's go back and rest first. Xiao Gu should have new arrangements for tonight." After all, Bai Munen's performance is just one scene, and it's over after the performance. Just as they were about to leave, the director suddenly stopped her and said, "This scene is good today. The producers and screenwriters are planning to add another white moonlight scene. You go back and prepare. Add scenes." Bai Munen was pleasantly surprised. This was a big production, and of course, the more appearances she made, the better. Originally, she only had one shot, and the audience probably forgot after watching it. The director didn't say anything more, just gave her a serious glance and left. Bai Munen was still silent in the joy of adding scenes, but heard Yin Shuang come over and pour a basin of cold water on her. "Do you think adding scenes is a good thing? For newcomers like you, of course, the scenes are few but excellent. Once there are more scenes, it is easy to expose defects. Don't let the gains outweigh the losses." "Sure enough, it's here again. Thank you for your concern, I will work hard." Bai Munen smiled faintly, too lazy to say more to her, and pulled Peach Blossom away. After taking a few steps, Cao Cao noticed that Bai Munen's footsteps were a bit weak and her face was also very unhappy. She asked with concern, "Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Do you want to go to the hospital?" "Nothing else, it's just a bit hot, just take a break." Bai Munen didn't want to waste time, it wouldn't be good if the director felt too affected. She took a few steps forward as she spoke, but suddenly her eyes turned black and she fell down. She was so scared that Cao Cao quickly hugged her. Passing by, the venue manager saw Bai Munen fainting and walked over to ask, "What's wrong? Did you suffer from heatstroke? It's very hot today and the sun is strong, so it's easy to get heatstroke. Go find a place to rest. But it will take some time to return to the hotel, and there will be a script reading session later. It's not good not to go. Then go back to the RV and rest." "Oh, I forgot she doesn't have a RV, so borrow someone else's RV to rest, drink some water, and she'll quickly recover." "Thank you, but I don't know anyone else, and..." Cao Cao was very embarrassed. Those who could have a RV on the set were all the protagonists, and she didn't have such a big face. Just borrowing it, the teachers are all very kind and won't be unwilling. Be generous. It's easy to say, but Cao Cao dare not. In the circle, it's all about worshipping high and stepping down low. As a little assistant, she doesn't have the courage to do so. At this moment, Yin Shuang's voice came from behind, "What's going on? Feeling uncomfortable? It's not impossible to find a place to rest. I can let her cool down in my nanny's car, but I'm asking." Yin Shuang wished he could fall into the well and hit the stone. Who would have let Bai Munen do so much? A newcomer should be a person with their tails between their legs, and he dared to confront her. "No need, I'm fine. Peach Blossom, let's go first." Bai Munen just regained some consciousness when she heard Yin Shuang say these words. How could she not understand Yin Shuang's intentions? Even if she felt uncomfortable, she would never bow down to her. "Really? I see you can't even stand steadily. Sometimes it's better not to be so strong, it'll only harm yourself." Yin Shuang continued to satirize, and Bai Munen only wanted to roll her eyes. She grabbed Cao Cao's hand and barely stood up before taking a step forward. Suddenly, she felt dizzy and disoriented. If Cao Cao hadn't hugged her in time, she might have fallen to the ground. "Come and rest at my place. At this moment, a cold voice came and stunned everyone, especially the field manager who looked at Feng Qi walking by with a shocked expression. And Yin Shuang's face was full of mixed flavors, and her smile immediately froze. Can it be? Cao Cao was dumbfounded, but it was Feng Qi who took the initiative to let them rest. Can't she even think of it? Xiao Lin, take them with you. Feng Qi didn't pay attention to Cao Cao, but said to his assistant. Assistant Xiaolin nodded and walked over to Cao Cao and the others, saying, "Come with me." "Thank you." Cao Cao quickly helped Bai Munin follow up, but at this moment, Bai Munin had completely fainted and her body was heavy and lifeless. Cao Cao's skinny little girl couldn't hold her, so she could only look pitifully at Xiaolin. After all, Xiaolin is a boy and definitely stronger than her. Seeing Cao Cao so pitiful, he sighed and walked over to pick up Bai Munin. However, as soon as he reached out, his wrist was suddenly grabbed by someone. He turned his head and saw that it was actually Feng Qi. "I'll do it." Then he heard Feng Qi's words and, in his shocked eyes, picked up Bai Munin with a calm expression as he walked towards the RV. Others were also dumbfounded, thinking they had misread, especially Yin Shuang, who was so angry that she stomped her feet. Why is she so lucky? What are you looking at? You're not keeping up yet. Xiaolin saw Cao Cao trembling in place and reminded her. Cao Cao then realized and quickly followed. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Exposure of Romance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Exposure of Romance. Bai Munin opened her eyes in a daze, her throat a bit dry, her head dizzy, and her whole body weak. She forced herself to sit up and looked at the unfamiliar environment around her, her mind buzzing. Where are you? I remember feeling dizzy at the time, and Yin Shuang was mocking herself. Why did she suddenly come here? Just as he was wondering where he was, a cold voice suddenly came from him. Drink some water when you wake up. Okay, thank you. Bai Munin almost instinctively opened his mouth to thank him before picking up the water cup on the table and suddenly realized it. Why is this voice so familiar? She looked in the direction where the sound came from and saw Feng Qi sitting there, holding the script in his hand and reading it very seriously. He didn't even lift his eyelids and knew she was awake. No, why is she here with Feng Qi? The thought of being a legal couple and being confused about obtaining a certificate from Feng Qi made Bai Munin feel both awkward, helpless, and a little nervous. Cough. She coughed and picked up her cup, pretending nothing had happened, taking a sudden sip. Her eyes quietly glanced at Feng Qi, feeling very uneasy in her heart. Although she is a legal couple, she is just a name. Feng Qi didn't take her seriously, so he couldn't just climb up the ladder. But there was no way to ease the awkward atmosphere without saying anything. After thinking for a long time, she opened her mouth and said, "Well, What's up?" Feng Qi put down the script and looked up at her. His eyes were filled with alienation and indifference, which suddenly choked up what Bai Munin wanted to say in his throat. "No, I'm fine now. Thank you for letting me rest here, so I won't disturb you." Bai Munin put down her water glass, got up, and hurriedly left. Fortunately, she has recovered now, otherwise she wouldn't be able to walk and would have stayed here. That's not even more awkward. Bai Munin only walked to the door when he heard Feng Qi's voice coming from behind. He asked, just saying thank you. "I'll treat you to dinner next time." She couldn't help but blurted out and fled in despair. Watching her receding figure, a faint smile suddenly appeared on Feng Qi's cold and stern face. "Mu Nan, why are you here?" Bai Munin just left the RV and collided head-on with Cao Cao. Cao Cao saw her bouncing around, thinking that she had bought this medicine for nothing. "Where else can I be if I'm not here? Let's go and take off my makeup first. It's tiring to wear this outfit, and I have to read the script at night." Bai Munin tried to calm down as much as possible and grabbed Tao Tao to take off her makeup. Tao Tao looked bewildered, but didn't ask much. After removing her makeup, Bai Munin felt refreshed and more comfortable. Although her makeup was elegant, the cost of clothing for the production team was very high, with each piece having several layers. As the male lead, Bai Moonlight naturally added more materials to her clothes, making them heavy and lifeless to wear. By the way, I have some good or bad news to tell you. Suddenly, Tao Tao spoke. Upon hearing these words, Bai Munin frowned slightly and asked with a puzzled expression, "What bad news?" She only heard bad words and didn't hear any good ones. Just forget it, you can read it yourself. Tao Tao opened her phone's Weibo page and handed it to Bai Munin. Hashtag Emperor Feng Qi's romance exposed. Hashtag Puhua plays for the upper position to drill Emperor's RV. Hashtag what is this all about? What has been exposed? Bai Munin's heart reached her throat. Just open a hot search and you can see a picture of Princess Feng Qi holding her. Not to mention the atmosphere, but what does this have to do with romance? She thought her case of obtaining a certificate from Feng Qi had been exposed. That's it, I thought. Is that all? Do you know that the company is already very busy now? I heard that several brand merchants who cooperate with Feng Qi have been creating a single persona for him. This so-called romantic relationship has been exposed on the hot search, directly threatening the interests of the merchants. They are working together to pressure our company and asking you to come forward and clarify. Let me clarify. What does this have to do with me? Didn't you see that I fainted? As someone who was completely unaware, she actually had to take responsibility for this matter. She saw those merchants clearly and felt that she was a promiscuous and easy to bully. Otherwise, why not let Feng Qi clarify? Because the current public opinion is that you intentionally seduce Feng Qi for the sake of rising to power. As the actor, you will definitely not come forward to clarify. Clarifying can minimize the damage. Then the whole network attacked me alone, and he didn't do anything. They are all in the same circle. How could Bai Munin not know the twists and turns involved? Now that the picture is everywhere, she doesn't believe that no one is behind the scenes. Xiao Gu will come soon, he will explain it to you. What? Yu Xiao is coming. When Bai Munin was a child, she was scolded by Yu Xiao, saying that she had finally managed to get such a good opportunity for her. However, such an incident happened, and once the production team felt that she had harmed their interests, she would be kicked out at any time. Bai Munin just listened like that and didn't dare to refute. After Yu Xiao finished scolding, she weakly said, "I didn't mean to faint, and who knew that Feng Qi would take me to the RV to rest voluntarily? We're not familiar. No matter what the purpose of Feng Qi is, what has happened is to damage your reputation. As a newcomer, if you are involved in a romantic relationship with an actor, others will only think that you are willing to do anything to rise to power. Peach news is very deadly for a female artist. What is going on in your mind?" Yu Xiao was so angry that he fiercely poked Bai Munin's forehead. In pain, Bai Munin reluctantly moved back and avoided his hand, asking helplessly, "What should we do now? Is there any way to remedy it? I'll take you to apologize to the crew first, and then you can meet Feng Qi. What did I see him do? Of course, let's see if we can slightly restore your image, otherwise this road will come to an end." Bai Munin followed Yu Xiao to the production team and apologized one by one, especially for the producers and directors. This is not a small project, and no one wants anything to happen. Before the production team causes trouble, taking the initiative to take responsibility can also gain some goodwill. After finishing, Bai Munin went to find Feng Qi. Compared to apologizing to the crew, negotiating with Feng Qi made it difficult for her to take a step forward. Bai Munin lingered outside Feng Qi's RV for a long time, but did not knock on the door for a long time. Although Yu Xiao's proposal could be tried, how could he talk to Feng Qi? To be honest, she really can't say that, let's just forget it. She simply prepared to leave and turned around to meet Feng Qi, who had just returned. If it weren't for Bai Munin stopping the car in time and almost colliding, she quickly smiled awkwardly and said calmly, "What a coincidence, I didn't expect to run into you here." After speaking, Bai Munin wished he could slap himself. What exactly was that saying? It would be strange if he could believe it. Sure enough, Feng Qi looked at her like a fool and asked in a somewhat amusing tone, "Coincidentally?" "It's quite coincidental. What are you doing outside my RV? Do you have something to do with me?" "It's not a big deal, I just want to talk to you." At least they are fake couples, wouldn't they not even give this face? Bai Munin's heart was filled with murmurs. "Come in," Feng Qi walked over and opened the RV, inviting her. "It seems that it's still for face," Bai Munin secretly slandered and silently followed. Before getting into the RV, she turned around and looked around to make sure no one breathed a sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, Feng Qi said coldly, "You only remembered to see if there was a paparazzi when everyone got into the RV." "I'm just looking around." Speaking of this, Bai Munin's voice became increasingly quiet, and he couldn't even believe it himself. Forget it, she doesn't care if someone takes a photo of her. After all, the more photos she takes, the better it will be for her to talk to Feng Qi about the next thing. "Tell me, what's going on?" Feng Qi sat on the sofa with a calm expression, holding his arms and looking at Bai Munin. Being stared at by his eyes, Bai Munin felt a sense of being seen through, inexplicably feeling guilty. She gritted her teeth, pulled a chair and sat opposite Feng Qi, mustering up the courage to say to him, "I want to talk to you about the joint hype." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Joint Speculation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Joint Speculation. Bai Munin's tongue was almost tangled when she said these words. Not to mention that she had no confidence, it would be like anyone talking to an actor who wants fame, status, and traffic for joint hype. If they say it, they might not be ridiculed to death. Bai Munin has no choice but to resolve this issue as soon as possible. When public opinion ferments, it will not be Feng Qi who will be affected, it will only be her. "Are you coming directly to me to talk about hype over my agent?" Feng Qi narrowed his eyes and a thought-provoking smile curved his lips, making Bai Munin shudder. You just want to try to use the relationship we have obtained to get me to help you. It's not that I never thought about it, but it's quite embarrassing to be exposed directly by someone. This is also beneficial for you, otherwise what are you planning to end up with now that the situation is like this? Bai Munin gritted his teeth and spoke softly in defense. Mainly, she couldn't figure out Feng Qi's thoughts and didn't know if he was willing to accept the proposal. Actually, it's normal not to accept it. At most, she would turn around and leave. Upon hearing these words, Feng Qi slowly stood up and propped his hands on the coffee table, staring down at Bai Munin from a high position. His voice was both magnetic and dangerous. "So you want to reveal our relationship?" "No, I didn't mean that." Under his gaze, which seemed to be staring at prey, Bai Munin's heart quickened, afraid that he would devour her alive. She quickly explained. "What does that mean?" "You want to stir up rumors with me." He leaned closer and closer, and the hot breath fell on Bai Munin's face, causing her to feel restless. She didn't even dare to look into his eyes. Undoubtedly, it is called the peach blossom eyes that are affectionate when looking at wood, coupled with a playful and dangerous smile, which is almost driving people to a dead end. Bai Munin's brain went blank, almost forgetting to explain. Fortunately, the coffee machine suddenly rang, which brought her back to her senses. She quickly stood up and took a step back, whispering, "Of course not." Xiaoji's meaning is that it can be pushed to the promotion of the movie, just like preheating it in advance. "Do you think my movie needs to be preheated in advance?" Feng Qi raised an eyebrow. Indeed, he is Feng Qi, and his name is the best promotion. There is no need for preheating. It seems that this road is not feasible, and Bai Munin doesn't want to continue to run into obstacles. She awkwardly smiled and said, "Then you can just pretend that I haven't said anything, I'll leave first." She turned around and walked away, without looking back in a hurry. She almost stepped on it and stumbled, making Feng Qi instinctively reach out to help her. However, they were far away, and Bai Munin moved quickly. She grabbed the door frame of the RV and stabilized it, jumped out of the car with 2 steps, and disappeared in a flash. After Bai Munin left, Feng Qi picked up his phone and called his agent Chu Yang. The phone was quickly answered, and a slightly tired voice came from over there. "I'm telling you, you still know how to call me. How do you plan to deal with this relationship? It's already spreading like wildfire, and I see they can't wait to dig up Bai Munin's ancestral tomb. How else can we handle it? Of course, we have to suppress it. You can really cause trouble for me. As an exchange, take the things I sent you seriously and read them all, and don't try to find any excuses. As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, he hung up the phone and didn't give Feng Qi a chance to refute. Putting down his phone, Feng Qi frowned with a headache on his face and sat back on the sofa. He expressionlessly opened his tablet and glanced at what Chu Yang had sent, then rolled his eyes. "I'm really good at finding trouble." After returning, Bai Munin didn't know how to explain to Yu Xiao. She went to see him honestly, but unfortunately it was of no use. What could she do? Before entering the door, she poked her head and didn't see Yu Xiao. Where did she go? Just as she was wondering, Tao Tao walked over with a basket of fruits and patted Bai Munin's shoulder. She was so scared that Bai Munin almost jumped off the ground. She quickly turned around and planned to call out Xiao Gu, only to find out that it was actually Tao Tao and let out a sigh of relief. "It's you," it startled me. "Where's Xiao Gu? Why isn't he here?" Brother Xiao went back. Before he left, he told me to buy some fruit for you. He also said that he would use dim sum for reading in the evening. After shooting, he would go to the next notice to make you ready. Is that all? Bai Munin thought she had heard wrong and looked at Tao Tao incredulously. Is this still the same Yu Xiao she knew? Well, that's it. Tao Tao nodded and picked up the fruit. It seemed like he wasn't lying to himself. Bai Munin followed and thought to himself, as long as he didn't blame her, maybe Yu Xiao found a solution on his own. Not being blamed by Yu Xiao, Bai Munin finally felt a big stone fall in her heart. She took a comfortable hot bath and started scrolling through her phone. The latest push was all about her relationship with Feng Qi, and when she opened the comments, she was still cursing her. The content is so unattractive that she almost used a small account to confront people. No fans are so passive, not even helping to curse. Why don't you open a small account to help me clarify? Bai Munin glanced at Tao Tao, who was in the middle of the small apple. She was the only one by his side, so he couldn't expect her. I am clumsy and afraid of being misunderstood if I say something that shouldn't be said. Nowadays, online public opinion is biased, and even black can be said as white. That's right. Bai Munin put down her phone and fell asleep. It was better to sleep than to think so much. Unexpectedly, she slept for several hours during this sleep. When she woke up in a daze and glanced at the time, she was so scared that she quickly started putting on clothes and pushed Tao Tao, who was also sleeping by the bed, hard. Why don't you call me? It's already this hour, and I have to read the script at night. If I'm late alone, what will the director and screenwriter think of me? I accidentally overslept too, what should I do? Tao Tao knew she had made a big mistake and her eyes turned red with anxiety. Bai Munin knew it was no use blaming her, so she had to say, hurry up and contact the driver. We'll go over now, don't delay anymore. The script reading has already started for 20 minutes, and everyone expresses their own opinions, analyzing the characters they play, and then the screenwriter explains them. Everyone was very serious about this process, and only Yin Shuang occasionally glanced at the empty space on the left side, which was Bai Munin's position. Everyone came, except for her, which was empty, so it was particularly noteworthy. However, the director and screenwriter did not ask, and immediately began to read around, making Yin Shuang feel that perhaps the production team had given up on Bai Munin. After all, daring to stir up rumors with Feng Qi at this critical moment clearly ruined his reputation. No one dares to make a mistake in such a big project, let alone just a newcomer. If it's too big, just kick it. Just as everyone was carefully analyzing the plot, Bai Munin rushed in and immediately caught everyone's attention. Sorry for being late. Being stared at by so many people, Bai Munin felt very embarrassed and quickly apologized. His attitude was still very upright, and the director and his team had not spoken yet. The several people led by Yin Shuang deliberately whispered to each other. Why come so late? A young newcomer has so much face. Yeah, didn't you see Feng Qi honestly follow the schedule? She dares to be late. Indeed, the newcomers nowadays have lofty aspirations and will never learn to be low-key. Those words were very harsh, clearly meant for the directors to listen to. No big shot in the industry could tolerate such neglect from newcomers, let alone the director's high status in the circle. In the past, some newcomers on the production team had an improper attitude and were directly kicked by him. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. Bai Munin can only apologize with a low profile now, otherwise it may cause everyone's dissatisfaction. Just as everyone thought Bai Munin would be rejected by the director, Feng Qi, who was sitting next to the director, suddenly spoke calmly, sit down, don't waste time. Feng Qi spoke up, even if the director and screenwriter were dissatisfied, they still had to give face. The director followed suit and said, hurry up and sit down. Okay, thank you. Bai Munin weakly said thank you and quickly sat down, joining the group reading. Her role is very simple, and there isn't really much to analyze. She just wanted to learn more from her, but she didn't expect to be late. It's like digging a hole for herself. 2 hours later, the reading was over and everyone dispersed, except for Feng Qi who stayed behind to continue discussing with the screenwriter. Bai Munin stood up silently, preparing to leave with the main army. Just as she stepped out, she heard Feng Qi suddenly stop her and say, wait a minute, didn't the director add an extra scene for you? That scene was also with me, and we happened to have a chat. Okay. Bai Munin paused and quickly retreated back, sitting down honestly. End of this chapter. What is your relationship with him in chapter 10? You are listening at novelfull.audio. What is your relationship with him in chapter 10? The screenwriter first sorted out the plot, and Feng Qi put forward his own point of view. The two of them had close contact and had a heated discussion. Bai Munin couldn't get in the way and could only sit there silently listening. What do you think? As they chatted, Feng Qi suddenly glanced at Bai Munin and asked her a question. Bai Munin was immediately stunned, like a student who was suddenly called out in class, completely bewildered. She paused for a moment before saying, I feel like there's still some emotional inadequacy. Well, I can add some details here. When we say goodbye, it's more about helplessness, regret, and unwillingness. Her words successfully joined the discussion, and the screenwriter was very satisfied with her interpretation, highlighting it in the script. The three of them discussed for several hours until their assistant came over and called for Feng Qi to shoot the night play. After bidding farewell to the screenwriter, Bai Munin grabbed the script and prepared to go back to studying research. After thinking about parting ways with Feng Qi, she turned her head and showed a professional smile. She heard Feng Qi's faint words, since you're so idle, come with me and make some soy sauce. What are you fighting for? Bai Munin thought he had heard wrong and was puzzled when he was dragged away by Feng Qi. At around 10 o'clock in the evening, the headlights of the crew were always on, and a bunch of flying insects were swaying around. Occasionally, there were 1 or 2 mosquitoes, and if you didn't pay attention, they would come to you. Pa! Bai Munin slapped her thigh, which was already the 9th mosquito she had killed. I don't know how long she'll stay here. At first, she thought Feng Qi was joking with her, but she didn't expect to bring Group A to her and even find a zombie character for her. She didn't need to do anything, wore extremely seductive makeup, and just lay in the coffin. On this big night, with people coming and going, and the weather still hot, she was already sweating profusely lying in the coffin. In order to prevent makeup smudging, she could only hold a small fan and blow it towards her face in a pitiful way. As he was blowing, he suddenly heard someone passing by on the edge. Bai Munin suddenly crawled out of the coffin, and before he could even open his mouth, he heard the person scream in agony, throwing out all the drinks in his hand. Sorry, scaring people to death at night, I thought. Standing in front of Bai Munin was a seemingly young girl named Lu Wen, who was the assistant of the female lead Bu Ling. At this moment, Bu Ling was hot and thirsty for the night play, so she was asked to buy drinks. Looking at the scattered drinks, Lu Wen stomped her feet in anger. If it weren't for the good temper of her own artist, she would have worried about being scolded. I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask how long this scene will end. Bai Munin awkwardly smiled and glanced at the drinks on the ground, feeling a bit embarrassed. I will compensate you. Forget it, I'll go buy it myself, don't bother you. Lu Wen sighed helplessly, turned around and left. Bai Munin quickly called out to her, wait a moment. This scene is one shot to the end, which greatly tests the abilities of the actors and directors, so all parties must be prepared before filming. I'm afraid it will take some hard work for you to lie down for a while longer. At this moment, a strange voice came from Lu Wen, who quickly turned around and said with a look of grievance, Sister Ling, I messed up again. I'm really sorry, I'll go buy it again now. Go ahead, it's halftime now. You still have time to go another trip. Bu Ling's tone was very gentle, and she couldn't hear any anger. Lu Wen quickly nodded and ran away in a lively manner. Bai Munin felt uncomfortable with her hand resting on the edge of the coffin. It was her first time communicating with Bu Ling, and she felt a bit uneasy. You should know that Bu Ling is a legendary figure. It is said that her family is not short of money and acting is purely for her hobbies. However, she entered the entertainment industry due to her hobbies and won the Golden Crane Shadow Queen in less than 3 years, which made others envious. This time she starred in a movie with Feng Qi, which can be said to be highly anticipated. Bai Munin nodded slightly and said in a low voice, well, then I'll keep lying down. By the way, what is your relationship with Feng Qi? Bu Ling smiled and approached, suddenly asking in a low voice that was almost imperceptible to others. She asked too suddenly, which made Bai Munin nervous and choked on her own saliva. She coughed suddenly, shaking her head while coughing, no, cough cough cough, it's okay, we're not familiar with each other. Really? But it's the first time I've seen him so close to a female artist. How close is it? Bai Munin couldn't help but swallow his saliva, pondering whether Bu Ling knew something. Oh no, if it's about obtaining the certificate, she definitely won't be able to eat her. So close. Bu Ling smiled and took out her phone, flipping out a photo and facing the screen towards Bai Munin. On the screen was a photo of Feng Qi pulling her, and I don't know if it was due to the dim lighting at night that the photo appeared slightly ambiguous. Fortunately, it's not about obtaining the certificate, but this is quite something, it's just a misalignment, actually not like that. He was. Bai Munin wanted to defend himself. At that time, Feng Qi was holding on to her and not gentle at all. How could he be misunderstood as having that kind of relationship? Don't rush to deny it yet. You understand what you know. I promised him to take good care of you during his time on the set, so these photos won't spread. However, I still want to remind you to stay away from Feng Qi, so as not to cause trouble. Her tone was very serious, which puzzled Bai Munin. Just as she was about to speak, she heard the deputy director shouting, everyone, filming is about to start. It's going to be filmed so soon, I'll go over first. Bu Ling smiled faintly and left with a smile before Bai Munin could speak. Bai Munin lay back in confusion, a little confused about what Bu Ling meant, and unsure of who had promised to take extra care of her. Just as Bai Munin was lost in thought, filming had already begun. This scene was in an abandoned charity estate, where the male and female leads, along with a male lead, came to investigate the matter of the heart-eating goo. The female corpse played by Bai Munin was the source of the heart-eating goo. During this process, she just closed her eyes and lay down without any unnecessary movements. Feeling the footsteps approaching, Bai Munin tried to hold her breath as the camera was also pushed over, giving her a big close dot up at any time without any accidents. I found it, the Goo King is her. The entire environment is very spacious, with even a slight increase in decibels carrying an inexplicable penetrating power, making Bai Munin's ears buzzing. Oh! Feng Qi turned around and walked towards Feng Gu, who played the second male lead with suspicion. Feng Gu pretended to be mischievous and lowered his head to observe the female corpse in the coffin. With an innocent expression on his face, he said, "Look, the female corpse is moving." In the script, he was allowed to play freely, so he designed small movements for himself. Who knew that the amplitude was too large, and he stepped on a stone with one foot and fell into the coffin with the other. As Feng Gu was about to fall onto Bai Mu Nan, he was suddenly pulled back by an external force. However, Feng Qi exerted too much force and his center of gravity was unstable. Feng Gu did not fall, but instead plunged into the coffin. End of this chapter.